Colossus is the most advanced lineup optimizer in daily fantasy sports. Lock and exclude players. Adjust player exposure to reduce risk of injury or poor performance. Customize individual projections or upload your own projections. Generate hundreds of optimal lineups in seconds. Name and save the best lineups. Create winning lineups for the top sites like DraftKings and FanDuel for free at dailyfantasycafe.com.
Hello and welcome to the Go for Ball podcast. I'm Big Italy 42. He's Scott Mailwig at Sports 25 to Life. We're talking about recent hitters, hot hitters, cold hitters. We're into the final month of the season, or final month of the regular season at least. So give you some idea of some guys that maybe overpriced, underpriced, try to help you get a little bit of an edge here. So as we're looking at catcher starting off, you're looking at the top guys over the past 30 days. Buster Posey, not showing any power, .049 ISO. 311 average, 308 WOBA. I mean, he's hitting for average, but as far as daily fantasy is concerned, he really hasn't been producing at his type of price tag. So that's making him like he's a good cash game play, I guess. But at his price recently, really a guy that you're just hoping for that power to come back around because he just really hasn't shown that upside at all recently.
Yeah, I mean, 0 home runs in the last month. I mean, there's just so much more upside if you're looking at cheaper guys right now, we've seen Lucroy come back with some power lately. Obviously, Kyle Schwarber is a big power guy at catcher. D'Arnaud has been really hot lately, hitting over 290 with 5 home runs in the past 30 days. Even Yan Gomes has 5 home runs in that span. It's just really hard to play Posey for his price right now. And, even Yadier Molina has 2 home runs over that span. So, that's kind of like what you're looking at. 30 days without a home run is a long time to go for what's been, basically outside of Schwarber, the highest priced catcher all season. So, it just hasn't been a great situation. It's been nice having catchers that are actually hitting lately with D'Arnaud and Schwarber and, even like I mentioned, Yan Gomes and stuff like that. Brian McCann's been a solid play as usual. His batting average has been way down, but he's still got 5 home runs and 17 RBIs despite hitting only 195 over the last month. So, just having all these options at catcher has been much, much better.
Yeah, especially guys like Jonathan Lucroy who are finally up there.
Yep.
Pricier. He was really cheap for a while, kind of let everyone down, but he's having a big-time month, so he's a guy you can look at moving forward. But outside of those guys, it's play your value guys and get yourself some good spots. Looking over here at first base, we got some ridiculous numbers up here at the top. We got Edwin Encarnacion batting .385 with 11 homers and 35 RBI, a 551 ISO over the past month. And then right behind him, the forgotten man who's also having a huge month, .345 batting average, 379 ISO, 30.4% walk rate, and 8 homers for Joey Votto. So, those two guys, and then Ryan Zimmerman even right behind them with a 413 ISO and 9 homers, 34 RBIs. Those 3 guys, they've really been head and shoulders above everyone else at first base. It's been a situation where you're paying up for these guys or you're trying to find some value.
Yeah, definitely. The only guy even remotely close to them over this span is Chris Davis, who is hitting, compared to that, a paltry .283 with 11 home runs and 22 RBIs. So, outside of that, we're looking at 3, 4, 5 home runs. Anthony Rizzo's been pretty good, but his batting average has been way down. Goldschmidt's been, by his standards, ice cold with only 5 home runs and a .275 batting average over the month. We've seen some other guys produce some solid cash game totals, like Eric Hosmer's having a nice month, but as usual, he's not quite hitting for enough power to really get in the conversation in terms of GPPs. One guy that's been really impressive is Mark Canha over the last month, though, hitting 300, 3 home runs, 19 RBI. Found himself in the second hole quite a bit for the A's. He's a guy that's been really interesting. He's been really, really cheap for quite a while.
Yeah, a guy that you mentioned on a podcast this weekend, Travis Shaw, a guy who's been hitting pretty well. 261 batting average isn't elite, but a 239 ISO, 5 homers. The guy's been mashing the ball. He's had a nice ISO, especially you mentioned he's been hitting lefty-lefty. So that's a guy you can look at. He's third base on FanDuel. So, he's a guy that you can play at a different position and get a little bit of value there because sometimes that third base options are really top-heavy, so you can get a nice value out of him as well.
Yeah.
All right, moving over here to second base. Kind of trying to keep it short and sweet for everybody here. We're looking at the top options here, and Jose Altuve really starting to have another nice month. 385 batting average. Not much ISO, but you're not playing Jose Altuve for his power. 8 stolen bases, 11 runs scored. It's a Houston offense, though, that's been among the worst in all of baseball over the past 30 days. Obviously, that's not Altuve's fault because he's been hitting the ball really well. But right behind him, Ian Kinsler, a guy earlier in the season, you and I especially kept talking about, we don't want to pay an elite price tag for a guy that's not hitting for any sort of power, not stealing bases. But Kinsler, over the past month, 264 ISO, 5 homers, 18 RBI, and more impressive, a 7% strikeout rate. So, I mean, he's always putting the ball in play. He's been worth his price tag, especially with Miguel Cabrera batting behind him again now.
Yeah, definitely. Another guy that's been in kind of the same situation, Brandon Phillips, has been awfully good lately. 312 batting average in the month, 3 home runs, stole 5 bases, which was one of the things that was helping him earlier in the season when he wasn't hitting home runs. And now that he's worked a couple more home runs in there over the past 2-3 months, 13 RBI, he's been a much better play. Ben Zobrist is a guy everyone knows I love. He's hitting 340 on the month, only 2 home runs and 10 RBIs, but he scored 21 runs for the Royals, which has been a great move to a better hitting team for him. I mean, the power is going to come back around at some point. He's going to be a great play the rest of the way. A couple guys a little bit lower here. DJ LeMahieu's cooled off a little bit, but still hitting over 300 with 7 stolen bases. He's still a strong play anytime they're in cores. Anthony Rendon has picked it up a little bit to 260 over the last month with 2 home runs and 17 runs scored, but hasn't nearly been the guy that we saw over the last couple of years. And then a guy that continues to be a popular play, but has been struggling a ton. Neil Walker's only hitting 233 on the month. Does have 3 home runs. Pretty similar numbers to Brian Dozier for cheaper, which is about the only good thing you can say about him right now. But I mean, Dozier's struggling too, only 215 over the last month with 3 home runs. Hopefully Dozier and Walker get it going because they were guys that were carrying teams in the middle of the season.
Yeah, I'm with you there. And then a couple guys, Jed Jerko's a guy who's been hitting for some power this month.
Yeah.
He's got 5 homers, 20 RBI, 189 ISO. So he's a guy who's close to minimum salary on FanDuel. Pretty cheap on DraftKings as well. If you just need a cheap source of power, I don't mind going his route, especially against a lefty recently. All right, shortstop options. Batting .410 over the past month, Francisco Lindor, another one of these guys you talk about a lot. Excuse me, he's got a 150 ISO, 2 home runs, 12 RBIs, 18 runs scored, batting second for the Indians. It's an offense that's been hit or miss. I mean, they go through a stretch where they score a lot of runs and they struggle for a while, but definitely nice for him having Michael Brantley bat behind him, certainly helping his run totals. And, I mean, the guy's putting the ball in play. He's having a hell of a month. And then another guy that one of our guys talks about a lot, Eduardo Escobar, Spencer's favorite there. Got a 278 ISO, 4 homers, 22 runs scored, 342 average, still batting around 7th most nights. But this is a guy you need to finally start giving a look to. His price is starting to creep up, but I mean, he's mashing the ball. I mean, it seems like every night he's hitting extra base hits, so he's a guy that's really worth a look.
Yeah, definitely. Ian Desmond for the Nationals has been one of my favorite GPP plays over the last month at shortstop. I mean, he's got 6 home runs, 6 stolen bases, 16 RBI, hitting .310. I mean, he's really inconsistent and has either like really, really bad games or really, really good games, but that's a perfect kind of GPP guy you want. I mean, having upside in both stolen bases and home runs is outstanding, especially at a shortstop position where he's the only guy other than Eugenio Suarez for the Reds over 4 home runs because of Escobar in the last month. So, I mean, finding some of these guys with some power is really nice. I mean, we saw Jung Ho Kang come in and give us the same kind of thing over the summer too. I mean, shortstop's been a pretty weak position, but we've seen some of these guys like Desmond and Kong and stuff like that emerge, which has been really, really helpful, especially when guys like Carlos Correa and Troy Tulowitzki are both hitting under 240 on the month. Even a couple other guys like, I mean, Jimmy Rollins has been better lately, but still struggling. Johnny Peralta isn't having a great year. So we really needed some of these new guys to come in and give us some life at shortstop.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you mentioned, Suarez. I mean, he was priced right how he's sitting next to Peralta in batting average, at least. He was priced very similar to him most nights, but I mean, ISO more than 200 points higher, 6 homers, like you mentioned. So definitely some power. And then a guy at the bottom that just seems like the default punt play on FanDuel every night, but he's awful. He's been awful. Alcides Escobar, he does have 6 stolen bases, but batting .202, obviously a low ISO, .044. I mean, you're essentially playing him in these spots because he bats leadoff, he gets on base sometimes, and when he does, The Royals usually bring him home because they're a great offense that scores a lot of runs. But, I mean, the guy just does not have any upside.
Yeah.
I mean, I hate myself every time I play him. All right, moving over here to third base. No surprise that Josh Donaldson's up at the top, but 354 ISO, 354 batting average, 8 homers, 33 RBI. Seems like this is pretty much what he does every month, although some months he gets more than 8 home runs. But then right behind him with similar numbers, though, 320 ISO, 340 batting average, also 8 homers, only 23 RBIs, though. Chris Bryant having himself a hell of a month over the past month. And when you compare the prices on these two, I mean, you get a significant discount with a guy like Chris Bryant. And, I mean, it's not to say that he's a better play, but if you can save yourself $1,000, $1,200, or $1,000, $1,200, then I think he's a viable play a lot of nights.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Arenado is the same way. He's kind of in between those two guys. Hasn't been priced quite as high as Donaldson unless he's at Coors. But, I mean, Bryant's been a great swerve from both of those guys. Another guy that's even cheaper, Danny Valencia, has been red hot, too, hitting over 300 for the past month, 5 home runs, 18 RBI. Still crazy to me that I know that the Blue Jays have a ton of good right-handed bats, but just unloading him like that was crazy with the numbers he was putting up against lefties, and he's a pretty decent hitter against righties too.
Idiots.
So
I think I tweeted him and called him idiots the day they released him because they
yeah,
are
I mean
idiots.
that was crazy. I mean, do what you have to do and keep him and trade him if you have to.
Get rid of Ryan Goins and let him play second. I mean, do
yeah,
something.
right. Yeah, definitely. Couple other guys that have been pretty hot lately. Martin Prado has been really, really good lately for the Marlins.
Yep.
Their offenses in general has kind of been struggling, but with Giancarlo Stanton getting close to a return here, if he's in the 2-hole still hitting 290 with 3 home runs and 18 RBI, I mean, you got to feel pretty good about him as a cash game play the rest of the way with better bats behind him. Couple of guys that are struggling. Matt Carpenter has been cold again, 245 batting average over the last month, but he still has been displaying some nice power with 6 home runs. Really similar line from Evan Longoria with 243 batting average and 6 home runs. Guys that are both tough to play. Like, you want to consider them cash game plays, but they haven't been really consistent lately, and you want to consider them GPP plays, but the offenses they're playing in right now just haven't been great, and it's really just kind of holding them back a lot.
Yeah.
And then the two guys at the very bottom, Pablo Sandoval and Jed Lowry, both hitting under 200, both consistently hitting pretty high in the lineup for teams that, I mean, have other good players in there, and they just haven't been producing much. Both single-digit RBI and runs scored on the month. 1 home run for Sandoval, 2 for Lowry. At least Lowry gives you shortstop eligibility where he's cheap, but,
Yeah.
I mean, Sandoval, I mean, he's dirt cheap, and he's still almost unplayable at this point.
Oh, and he is. I mean, Sandoval's one of those guys that I don't care if he's free. I'm not spending a roster spot on him. He's just
Right.
awful. No thanks for me. One guy I want to mention as a power play in the middle there, Brett Lawrie. Not ever going to hit for big batting average, but 264 ISO and batting average, 6 homers over the past month. You're pretty much playing him chasing a home run because he's not a guy, like I said, that's a consistently good hitter, but a lot of power for cheap, so he's a guy to keep on your radar.
Definitely.
All right, moving over here to the outfield. We've got quite a few guys having monster months over here. Up top, Michael Brantley, 393. Not a ton of power, 247 ISO you like. But when you can factor in his price and what we've seen before out of Michael Brantley, that's good, but not great. Not to talk down on a guy that's batting 400 this month, but
he's just more of a cash game guy with the lack of power right now, and the stolen bases haven't really been there. If you're looking for more of a GPP play, I mean, AJ Pollock's a guy that's had an insane price tag, hitting around the same batting average, around the same ISO, but he has that really strong stolen base upside. He stole 10 in the last month. That gives him some nice GPP upside. It's nice having him play in Arizona, too. I'd love to see more power out of him, but it's awfully hard to complain about him right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Jackie Bradley, another guy who's been hot, but he's got a 531 batting average in balls in play, so obviously that's going to regress quite a bit. But a 400 ISO for a guy who bats ninth in a pretty potent offense definitely makes him a good tournament play. But, I mean, he's priced near 4,000 on both sites now, so it's been a situation where it's been pretty tough to get him in your lineups unless you're just making a full-blown stack. And then,
definitely. Carlos Beltran continues to be the best post All-Star break player in the history of the world. He's hitting 360 with 6 home runs over the past month. I mean, he's really helped that Yankees offense. Has been struggling with some injuries and stuff lately. Moved up to the 4 and 5 hole, even the 3 hole at times, depending on who's been in and out of the lineup. Teixeira, I just saw, is on the DL again this weekend.
Yep.
Looks like that's retroactive at least to the 27th or so, so he should be back pretty soon. But I mean, if Beltran's hitting 3 through 5, I mean, he's been underpriced for most of this month, and he's just been producing really well. If the rest of the Yankees could get going, he could have some really massive RBI and run scored numbers right now, but they've been struggling a little bit as a team.
Yeah, definitely. And then a guy who is one of my favorites, probably the best 8-hole hitter in all of baseball right now, Kevin Kiermaier, batting .316 over the past month. He's got an ISO of 152, which isn't great, but not much of a power hitter. But 5 stolen bases, 3 homers, 10 RBI in the 8-hole. I mean, he's been productive, and he's near minimum salary, so he's a guy I like to slot in there as a filler in my GPPs. And then down below them, Jason Hayward's a guy who's been quietly having a pretty good season as well. But 304, batting average 152,
Yep.
ISO. But like you said, that Cardinals offense as a whole, I mean, you can hit all the doubles you want, but if no one's there to bring you home, there's
Right.
no one to score, then, I mean, there goes your value right out the window.
Yeah, definitely. A guy that's just been rock solid that kind of struggled a little bit to start the season, Ryan Braun, had another 300-plus, 5-home run month. I mean, he's just a really, really strong player right now. He's been crushing lefties. He's been good enough against righties. Gregory Polanco, we've been talking about quite a bit lately on the daily podcasts. He's been absolutely fantastic for the Pirates in the second half, hitting .310 again over the last month, 3 home runs, 5 stolen bases. I mean, that's not spectacular numbers, but he's been rock solid, and there's some upside in both of those categories with him when he's playing really well. So he's a guy that has been on my radar in basically every single day lately that he's not facing a left-handed pitcher, and he's even been okay against lefties. I just prefer him against righties.
Yep. Yeah, another guy to mention who's been really hot, a power hitter who was not hitting for power earlier this season, Mark Trumbo. Still
Yep.
pretty cheap on both sides. 329 ISO and 8 homers over the past month. Mariners, I mean, they have a lot of good hitters. They haven't been consistent, but I mean, when these guys get in a good matchup against a bad righty, I mean, Trumbo, we know, hits lefties very well also, but I mean, this team can put up a lot of runs in a hurry. So he's definitely a guy that I love playing in GPPs because, like he showed you a couple days ago, he's got that 2-homer upside. So he's in a great spot. And then your worst hitter, once again, over the past 30 days, Jay Bruce, batting 127, 118 ISO, 146 batting average on balls in play. I mean, we see the most dramatic shifts you've ever seen on defense with guys like Jay Bruce, and he just hits into them every time. So Jay Bruce, he's near minimum salary, but I mean, you're just praying for a home run essentially when you
Right. I mean, he's been rough. I mean, we've had guys struggling at sub 200 before, but I mean, 30 days of sub 125 batting average is rough.
Yeah.
Carlos Gomez is down there also. Ever since the Astros acquired him, he's been basically awful. 187 batting average, 1 home run. At least he's got 5 steals. He does have some nice upside with that power speed combo, but I mean, if he's not getting on base, and as you mentioned when we were talking about Altuve, everyone after Altuve has been absolutely terrible for the Astros lately. We talked about how Correa has been down there by Tulowitzki. I mean, they have a lot of talent, and they could get it going at any time, but I mean, he needs the rest of the lineup around him to perform, and he really needs to start hitting himself. One guy that's really surprising that's been down there, Brett Gardner, is a guy that I haven't seen go this cold very often. 218 batting average over the past month. He does still have 13 runs scored, which is really nice because he's been in that really solid Yankees lineup, even though they've been a little bit cold lately. 2 home runs, 3 stolen bases. He's not a guy I'm super worried about. I assume it's just a cold streak, and the Yankees have been cold as a team, like we mentioned, which, I mean, sometimes that gets a little contagious when you see other guys not getting on base and stuff like that. So I think Gardner's going to turn it around, but he's going to have a really nice price at some point during September and get really hot, and he's going to be an absolutely fantastic play.
Yep, I'm absolutely with you there. That's going to do it for us. Find us on Twitter at DFCafe, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and check out all of our content at dailyfantasycafe.com.